specific mutations that can cause either fatality or severe issues for your snake. I've had only 3 snakes that have come with some sort of, genetic mutation induced, so to speak, problem, and only one that was lethal immediately, or almost immediately. Ember here actually has a very, very slight issue with genetics. I believe he must have some sort of, I guess that's, what he has is a little, I've just looked at all the videos and it just seemed a little bit different to me than most of the videos that you see on spider, the kind of neurological stuff that's going on. It's more a shaking of the head and neck than anything else. And I've seen several videos of that. And most of them are really severe, so it's a good thing that his isn't. The only time that it really affects him is when he moves his head and neck a certain way, like really sharply, bending it up or down. And it's this side-to-side, muscle tremor kind of shaking. This is caused by genetics, and there may be more than one type of mutation that causes it. But, it's the neurological issue isn't so bad that he can't eat. But that's when I first noticed it, because he has to move his head in really awkward positions. Compared to what he would do just naturally in his terrarium, compared to what he would do just naturally, kind of crawling around when you take him out. But I have seen him do it occasionally when he was not feeding. As long as I give him his food in an easy place that he can, easily position himself, he's fine. So he's really not that much to worry about, but some of them have a lot more severe, unfortunately, neurological issues and can actually perish from this. He seems to be very, very minimally affected by it, which is good. But my first snake was a coral corn snake. It was a snow coral, and I didn't know anything about the coral gene. I just literally just waltzed into Petco one day and said, I'd like to get my first snake, and I was like, what kind of snake should I get? And they're like, well, corn snakes are good beginner snake. I was like, okay. And they're like, well, we got like 4 or 5. You want to pick one? So I picked one, and just randomly picked one, and that just happened to be, the snake that I picked out. And I thought that little bump on his tail, he had a bump on his tail, probably about yay right there. And I thought, oh, that's probably just because he's a male or whatever. I knew nothing, literally nothing about. Well, a few months later, one bump turned into 2, turned into 3, turned into 4. And about the second bump, I went to the vet because I thought it was cancer. She's like, nope, it's just his spine growing crooked. This is a genetic issue. You can't fix it. All you can do is kind of manage and only expect him to live a few years, because eventually he's going to get paralyzed. He only lived a couple of years. He had a good, nice, short life of bliss. We, managed his pain, actually with some pain injections towards the end. He was actually an ambassador animal that we took to kids with disabilities. He would let kids scratch him like a dog. I mean, it was ridiculous. But he just, that being my first introduction into corn snakes, so I was like, I want to find out what this is. So when I went to get my second corn snake, I tried to find pictures of what he looked like, and I realized that most of the kinked snakes were the same color that he was. And so then I found out, oh, this is a coral mutation issue with the coral mutation gene, where they're just prone to. The second corn snake I got, I actually looked into the Aneri genes to see if there's any kind of issues with the area. I didn't find any issues. That I was like, okay, that's a cool looking corn snake. I'm going to get that. It doesn't seem to have any issues. And of course, any snake, just because they're not genetically prone to something doesn't mean they can't have issues. But so, and she's doing good, and I would get her out, but she just ate, so I'm not going to mess with her. But Ash is doing good. She's about a year old, doing great. So then going back to recently, about a month or so ago, I just got another corn snake. 3-4 weeks later, still did not eat. She's a Bloodred, and I thought, okay, well, maybe this is a new genetic thing. I tried to look at anything specific about Bloodreds, and I could not find anything definitive. It was a quick search, I'll admit, before I bought, but I thought, I was safe. And then for about a month, I continued to research after I got her. Is there anything in that genetic mutation? It did not come up. It did not come up unless I put a very specific, sequence of wording. I had to be very specific on the wording for it to even show up in the search results as to exactly why she was not eating, exactly what was wrong with the Bloodred color morph. Basically, Bloodred is just like a blizzard, except for it's solid red instead of solid white. So I thought, maybe it has something to do with mutation stuff. But honestly, I was like, it probably doesn't. It's probably just her. So I was very shocked when I read this and I found this out. There's only one article that I ever found, and it wasn't even really on purpose. It was just someone had asked, what makes a Bloodred a Bloodred, and someone had actually gone into grave detail about the whole history of, that gene, and they said, initially there wasn't too much of a problem, but after they started getting really inbred. They bred way too much for the color, and they got too inbred, and then they actually started having issues where none of their babies would eat, and it started to be global. And if they would eat, they would not eat regularly, and they got this reputation, this really bad reputation. So bad that no one wanted to breed them, no one wanted to buy them even as pets, because they were afraid that they wouldn't eat. So what they started doing is they started adding a little bit of genes, just a little bit, back into the gene pool, but not enough to make it something like a true cross, like a Bloodred crossed with a hypo or, whatever. But it was enough to still look exactly like your typical Bloodred. Maybe their bellies looked a little different. Maybe they weren't as dark in color. But, still enough to be called a Bloodred, right? And they thought, okay, well, as long as it still looks like a Bloodred and we got some genes in there, we'll fix the problem. Well, it only halfly fixed the problem. Some of them, obviously, ended up eating because they were able to breed them, but a lot of them don't. And the place that I got this snake from, it's actually the same place I got Ash. It's a really good company. I've never had them not eat from me, and they've always been, everything healthy, fine. And so, I thought, okay, well, of course they're going to test to see whether or not she can eat before they send her to me. But I didn't realize that this company partners with a lot of other companies in order to have all the different combinations that they have. They actually partner with other breeders and stuff, and they're they have not just one location but several locations and pet stores, and they're pretty big. And I didn't realize how big they were, and I thought, okay, if they're partnering with all these different places, maybe one of those places told them that they had fed, but maybe they actually hadn't fed, and maybe I just got unlucky where they, the hatchling was so new that they hadn't tried to feed it, and they just took the word for the breeder saying that it had already fed. So basically, she never ate, she never drank. I would try to show her water dish, and she'd just go over it like or just sit there like it wasn't even there. And she also didn't go in her hide, like she didn't know where her hide was, even though it was right there. Any normal corn snake would just go under, but she would go over it like it was not there. Yeah, when you got her out and you tested to see whether or not she could see, put something by her eye, like, or something, she could definitely see, I tried every trick in the book to get her to eat, literally every trick in the book, even assist feeding, and nothing. Absolutely nothing. So she didn't drink, she didn't eat, and unfortunately, she eventually just died. It was really sad, and I thought, why do this? Why breed something if most of them are just going to die? That's not right to the animal. It's not fair to the animal. And they claim, these breeders now claim, oh yes, the problem's fixed. I'm telling you right now, if I just get one and it just so happens to be one that doesn't eat, that means that most of them don't eat. The problem is not fixed. So if you're going to get a Bloodred, try getting one that's crossed with something else, like Bloodred and Hypo or Bloodred Sunkissed or something, because that is, not just one gene there. That's adding even more to the gene pool than those just plain Bloodreds that have a tiny hint of something else and are just mostly Bloodred. Trying to get as far away from that issue as possible, then maybe you want 4 or 5 genes in there instead of just 2, but definitely not just the one single alone Bloodred gene, because I don't trust it at this point. Now, eventually I believe that it will get fixed. I just don't think it's going to be something that's going to be fixed right. I think it's going to take years to breed out and to correct the issue. What are you doing, Ember? I don't know what he's doing. Anyway, I don't know what the issue is, but, something wasn't right. If she did eat before, I'd be very surprised. It was almost like something in the brain wasn't working, something in the brain that associates, okay, this is my hide, this is my water, this is what this is what that is. It was almost like that wasn't working properly. Yet she moved okay. There was nothing neurological wrong. She even shut out fine. So actually what I'm going to do, I'm actually very curious. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a Bloodred crossed with albino. Albino is in almost, I won't say almost every, but it's in a lot of color mutations. Albino in a lot of animals can be a weakness, but in the corn snake, albino, oddly enough, doesn't seem to have many flaws. It seems to be a pretty strong gene. So I'm going to try that, and I'm going to see if that makes any difference. And after that, if that one doesn't eat either, I'm not going to ever try it again, because I don't want to support, I definitely don't want to support, just the Bloodred with nothing else. But if they're trying to fix the issue and they're doing all these different crosses, to me that's saying, okay, we care morally enough not to breed something that we know for sure has high fatality rate. There's only one article about that, about the Bloodred gene that I found, and I looked for months. It shouldn't be that difficult to find out, what's, a strong mutation gene and what's going to be something that causes a lot of issues. It's not fair to the animals. It's not fair to the people buying the animals. But it's especially not fair to the animals that, people are still breeding these things and they're not telling you. They're not telling you, this is what this is what that is. Stay away from this or that. In certain things, they do. In certain mutations where it's so obvious and everybody knows about it and it's a common mutation. But when it's a mutation that's more rare like that not many people have heard of, there's not much on it. And that secrecy is to me, near criminal level. Like when you go to buy baby chicks, for example, for a flock, if you get Americana chicks, a reputable hatchery will be like, just so you know, this comes with a genetic mutation that sometimes their mouths are crooked and grow crooked. And if it's something that's just flat out fatal, like the Bloodred gene, shouldn't even be doing it at all.